Good morning, everybody. So today is going to be uh, kind of discussion on something that I was kind of following for the last few years, and now I think I've come to kind of a greater conclusion of what that thing really was. I think often we have the idea that pops into our head, which is like the first original thought, and then we have to kind of follow it to its conclusion. And in that way, this is what happened. So when I was strictly into fitness and doing that kind of thing, I felt that there was a certain limitation that stopped my clients from really achieving the thing that was health. This thing essentially was the moral or simple downfall of fitness. This being that it does not allow you to touch another person other than stretching. Therefore, you can't get true insight on what's happening with the muscles. We can see how they should be in the technique and how to correct that technique, but we're not particularly sure with how things are coming about within the body by the use of touch. So from that, I went more into therapeutic style techniques and things of that nature. And then I found here that the limitation was that you are doing for your client. So therefore, they have a hard time of taking a style of responsibility that leads them to kind of follow through on their exercises or homework or the prescription that we give to them after the therapy is done. Now, moving from that, I said, well, you know what? I'm going to try more mental health. Mental health seems to be more of the kind of contributing factor. Why are people not doing their homework? It's because, there's some kind of mental barrier with this. And exploring this realm for what it was, I found again a kind of limitation. This is that when something becomes strongly mental, it starts to move away from the physical expression of that thing, meaning that you can know something without acting on it, therefore not bringing it to life, right? Therefore not having the end conclusion of what that solution should be. So that was a strong hindrance there. When we come to medicine style things, the limitation comes in the sense that we are helping the person in crisis now and not particularly dealing from what created the crisis itself. Um, and this is kind of the moral dilemma of all those things. All things do have this element where there's kind of the blind spot or the kind of missing piece of that thing. And then we move on to health as a whole. The last few months I've been kind of deliberating over what would be this same kind of concept when it comes to health and its application as a whole unit. And I've come to the conclusion that the missing piece in this perspective is that health assumes that we are dealing with the pressures that we're currently under now. This is not true, actually. We are, in fact, dealing with pressures that were inherited to us. Therefore, the pressures we're feeling today are from a different age. Therefore, the solution for this kind of thing was lost to that age, right? Knowing that the pressures that were on our grandparents were their pressures. And if they failed to deal with those pressures, then they got passed down to the younger generation. This younger generation now inherits this style of looking at life which there is no solution yet. And the pressures have changed to also include a different dimension. Now this person is suffering from the lack of, let's say, emotional acknowledgement, but also the fact of having to get things done quickly and the pressure of time. Then we add another layer. Well, their son or their child is going to have to deal with the repression of emotions and the speed of which things have to get done. So let's call that anxiety. And then we have the fact that there's a lack of fulfillment from even if a person does a certain style of achieving with this younger generation. Well, this causes a triple burden. So if we're just going to say now that, oh, well, we need to deal with the emotional oppression, we need to deal with the anxiety, and we need to do with the lack of fulfillment. All these things exist again in a new world where these things weren't cultivated, the smaller skills weren't cultivated to overcome such a strong burden. Right? It's been lost to time in that sense. So how do we expect to be able to restore health of an individual when the pressure of health that's being put on them is enough to disintegrate the family unit? So let's say all the pressures that have been put on us thus far has ended in the cultivation of the lack of family togetherness. How is one person supposed to reinvigorate that thing and restore it back to having a full family effect? They might try, in the sense of, with the skills that I have now, from the understanding I have now, how do I rebuild this family unit and make it strong? This, in fact, is a compensation, and it's not necessarily a solution, because the person has to ideally cultivate a style of insight leading to wisdom that creates within themselves the feeling of the family, and therefore, when in the family, uh, is able to create the environment that sustains something of a family unit. Now, that is the challenge. That is something that we truly have to look deeper into, and in this way, solving the greater problem of health, so we're more close to the original source. And with a small, concise effort, we can restore the smaller expressions of the larger element. We can say we always seek the greater good, and when we're not able to achieve this greater good and stop before we've kind of made it, there is all these compensations, these lesser expressions of what we're striving for. But in fact, we have to keep striving till we get there. And this is why I think that focusing on the potential within a person is a greater solution, health-wise, as a totality of mental, physical, and emotional health, than it is just to perpetuate a style of compensation. So that is my insight, along with the kind of missing element of health, and hopefully that makes sense and you think a little bit harder on the topic. All questions, concerns, and insights are welcome, and you can post those underneath, or just email me at noelm@designfitness.com. That'd be great, or .ca, sorry.